updates, ticket giveaways, show highlights, you can follow at KFAN 1003 on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. Do it all today.
End of an era for our next guest. Big change. I mean, you're not one of us, correct? Chris Hine?
I'm not.
As we say hi to Chris Hine, Star Tribune, longtime beat writer, NBA and Minnesota Timberwolves. But how long have you lived in Minnesota, even if you're not one of us?
8.5 years.
Okay. That's a decent amount of time. That's still interloper, but probably long enough to feel like you are going to be, I assume, a little bit emotional about leaving. The big news that you're headed to Philadelphia to cover LeBron and the Sixers for the Philadelphia Inquirer, as you announced. Was it last week or the week before?
Yeah,
we talked about it when the story broke. Mm-hmm. So I think this is where you sort of thrived, wouldn't you say, and kind of arrived to a certain extent?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to have a really great career in sports media so far. 8 years at the Chicago Tribune. I covered college sports and the Blackhawks for a few years there. And then the last 8 seasons covering the Timberwolves here for the Star Tribune. And the book, which doesn't happen without me coming here and working the Wolves beat for that amount of time, and Ant coming here.
Or Gerson Rosas drafting him. See?
Right.
You got to thank him, too.
The draft.
It's got to be on the list.
Everybody, developing them, all of it, right? All of it.
That's true.
So I'm very thankful for all of it. It's, my colleagues at the Strib, people at the Timberwolves, and just the chance to get to cover an NBA team and an NBA team on the rise and see how, and chronicle kind of, what is the longest sustained success in this franchise's history. It was truly an honor and a lot of fun.
So here's the most important question. Mm-hmm. If LeBron hadn't chosen Philly, would you still be covering the Minnesota Timberwolves? Was the LeBron factor a factor for Chris Hine?
No, it wasn't. It was.
It's a sexier story if it was, but I'm not surprised.
This was going to happen regardless of where LeBron ended up, because my family is from Northeast Pennsylvania.
Gotcha.
Near the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area. And so I've lived in the Midwest now for 20 years between college and my 2 jobs. So getting back to a 2-hour drive from the folks and my 2 sisters and my brother and the rest of the family, who's all kind of in the same area, that's huge for me, especially at this point in life. And so to have this opportunity come along to really continue my career, not take any kind of a step back or anything like that, have this great opportunity at a paper that's doing some really interesting things in terms of how it's facing the future. It was like a perfect match of the timing and where I'm at in life to take this opportunity.
And then LeBron falls into your lap. That ain't bad either. That's a nice addition to it.
It all happened at the same time.
Right.
Where I was, almost ready to say yes to it all. And then a few days later, LeBron just makes his decision. And then my mind was just racing 100 miles an hour because I'm like, this is going to be like a chance to cover something unlike anything I've ever experienced in my career as a sports writer. It's such a massive, massive story on a number of levels. Him for the city of Philadelphia, for the league, for that team, that franchise, the area as a whole, and for the paper. The bottom line of the paper is going to benefit because of that too, most likely. So it's just a really unique opportunity that, for the rest of your life, you could say that you covered a LeBron James
100%
basketball team.
I'll mention to the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line 64686 if you have questions for Chris about the Wolves, the past, the present, the future, about LeBron, about career stuff, whatever. Just text us, and we'll be glad to include all of those in the conversation. I'm sure we'll discuss at some point the Timberwolves the NBA's official schedule release today too.
So in terms of your legacy here, Chris, would you prefer that it is the Ant book, or would you prefer that it was the perfectly timed follow-up question to Jaden McDaniels about the bad defenders in the most recent Denver series? I thought you might be able to retire off of that Twitter video because of all the views that it got.
I didn't make a dime off of that. I'm not in the monetized program of Twitter. I know
that was a mistake. But
that's what people have told me. The Ant book was great, and that's something that as a sports writer, you always dream of putting your name on the front cover of a book. So to have that opportunity was huge. I'm glad I did it. It was stressful as hell, but I'm glad I did it. And I think the Jaden McDaniels, that interview was one of the, I think, most surreal moments I've had in my career as well. Like, just leaving that interview and being like, did he really just say what I think he just said? Let me before I put this on the internet, and I have a feeling I know what it's going to do when I put it on the internet. Let me just listen to it back like 3 or 4 different times before I quote it. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly what he said. That's exactly. And coming from Jaden McDaniels, who, watching him throughout his entire career here, he went from being very shy and kind of 1-2 word, 1-sentence answers, and in interviews and Zoom interviews and things like that, his rookie year, to year 6, year 7, he's giving an answer like that after a playoff game. That was fun to kind of just think back and see how far he's come in his career, and just the comfort and the confidence of that he has in his career. So that was a fun moment. And the minute I uploaded that video, I knew exactly what was about to happen. I had to mute my phone.
I was about to ask you the biggest difference in your mind of what covering the beat is like now compared to, let's say, when you began, or even going back to Chicago covering stuff. But I think the answer is related to this story, right? I mean, I think of a quote like, there have been quotes over the decades just as mythic as that one, but they don't travel across the world in a tenth of a second. Right. It might be in the newspaper the next morning. The broadcasters might put it on the 10 o'clock news, or the news in the morning too. That's one of the things that strikes me, is how much more quickly that sort of story or comment can travel compared to the way the business once was.
I signed up for Twitter when I was still in college. So I've always been a part of like the social media age of sports journalism. So I've never known sports journalism before the social media age. So even if you're just typing out a quote on Twitter back in like 2009, 2010, it was going to gain some traction right away. I think now with video and everybody's phone just being a camera in the locker room, and literally like that's a great example. I'm walking down the hallway after that. It's literally 5 minutes later that I'm posting that. And it's out there for everybody to see, where, like you said, the life cycle of something like that might take 24 to 48 hours to really materialize. In the old days, everything is just so instant, and the need for information, or the demand for the content is changing all the time, and the ways that it's delivered. I think that's the biggest thing, that is the way people consume sports content in 2026 is so different from when I started in like 2010, different than 2015, and different from 2020. It's changing all the time. And so to try to keep up with that is a challenge, but I still hope at the end of the day that there is a place and a demand for the written word. And, cause that's why I got into this business in the first place, was to write. And I hope that, we're figuring it out as an industry, but I hope that there's always at least a place and a demand for good writing and storytelling at the end of the day.
That's right up my alley. That's where I wanted to go. The way I was going to ask it was this: is there still room for a good story? Or is there still, maybe the better question, is there still an appetite from listeners, from editors, for a good story?
Yeah, I think there is. I think there is. I think the question has always been in and around, how do you monetize it? And that's the challenge. Right. And that's been the eternal challenge for the last decade plus in this business. I think there's still a demand and a desire to read good writing and good stories. And, at least I hope so for the rest of my career. I hope that's the case. But it's in and around how do you make money off of it. And I think as a writer and as a reporter, you realize you have to also diversify the ways in which you bring that information to the reader and or listener, whether it is on social media, whether it is in a podcast form or audio form or video form, however it may be. I think, the last few years has opened my eyes to at least to, how many different ways you can slice up the content pie for people and how they consume their sports media.
Chris Hine is in studio, covers the National Basketball Association and the Timberwolves for the Star Tribune. This is effectively an exit interview because I think you wrap up at the Star Tribune this week, Friday. Friday's your last day. Mm-hmm. And so we're kind of reflecting, looking forward, giving him a chance to sort of tell the story of how we got there, giving texters a chance to get in on this conversation as well. Guardsy, for the sake of our audience that maybe doesn't always pay attention, at some point, find us the audio from the Jaden moment that we've been talking about, because we all assume everybody knows it. Maybe not everybody does, or they wouldn't mind being reminded. So we don't have to do it this minute, but it's a good thing, I think, for us to play and to talk about. I'll give you this toss-up from the audience. This is from John out of Playa Vista, California. Hi, Chris. If 10 years ago someone would have told you that the Wolves would win an NBA title before the Vikings won a Super Bowl, how insane would that have sounded? The Wolves seem closer than they ever have. Thoughts? There's a lot in there because
there's a lot in there.
I'm not sure they are closer than they've ever been. They might have been a little closer a couple years ago. I don't know, but it is remarkable how it's flipped here. And you know the history of the Timberwolves, how dysfunctional a franchise this had historically been.
And I think it goes to how quickly it could flip. It really was like, okay, when Anthony Edwards got here, within 2 years, the whole fortunes of the franchise flipped. And in the NBA, it can be like that, where you get one guy in the door who's a game changer like that, and it can change the fortunes of your entire franchise. And that's not the case in the NFL. Obviously, if you get a generational quarterback, that could be the case in the NFL. But I think it could happen a little more easily in the NBA when there's only 5 guys on the court at a time.
Absolutely.
That you get that one guy, you get that one stroke of lottery luck. You get a Victor Wembanyama, you get an Anthony Edwards, you get a LeBron James, whoever. And those guys tend to come along every couple of years in the NBA, and it can just change your franchise around. So I wouldn't have been that surprised by that scenario 10 years ago, just because of the nature of how the NBA draft can work.
Well, I mean, to me, what you're articulating is part of the reason teams give these players as much, I guess you could say, control, more control than probably any other sport, to the point where they're almost running their team in fear. Are you okay? Are we doing everything that needs to be done? And, of course, what that can lead to sometimes is overcorrecting and actually catering too much to individual players. We're talking about Washington. Who's street clothes? The big man. Anthony Davis. Yeah. So there's already talk about, well, they're going to wait on the possibility of another contract extension. Any contract when he's 2 years out, any contract extension for him at this point is just, to me, done out of habit or, again, out of fear. Yeah. And it just doesn't. But part of the reason that culture has existed is what you say, because if a team identifies, well, this guy might change everything, and that is the reason I think often some teams go as far as they tend to in the NBA.
And I think this is one of the fascinating things about the NBA right now in this moment is teams are being a little more critical about who exactly these guys are.
Exactly right.
And if they're truly not a top 5, 10 player in the league, the Jaylen Brown trade is a good example of this.
Great point.
If a team identifies that they're good, but maybe they're not that good or as good as we thought or whatever the case may be, in this second apron era, teams are being a lot more selective about who they hand this money out to. In the previous CBA, it was almost a given that, even if a guy wasn't deserving of a max contract, they were going to still get a max contract, even if you were in the ballpark. That's not the case anymore in this era of the NBA. So I think you're seeing that change a little bit, that teams are fighting back a little bit against just handing out these really large contracts and not thinking twice about it. They're thinking twice about it now, and then even if they give out the contracts a year or two later, they're looking to move off of them.
It's absolutely true. You're seeing it's sporadic, but I do think you're seeing more signs for lots of different reasons of either owners pushing back, general managers pushing back, or being a little bit more discriminating. Like you say, yeah, we know you're top 30, but you're not top 10.
Right.
And there are limits based on all the other people we might have to pay, tax issues, et cetera, which we will get into later as well. Ray and Hopkins wants to know if the Philadelphia Inquirer still prints a hard copy version.
Yeah.
You do. Because the trend is away from that. As you know, it's happening more and more for obvious reasons.
And I hate it. I hate it too, because, I'm a millennial, but I grew up still with seeing the paper every morning. And I often took pride, especially early in my tenure at the Star Tribune, of having an 11:15, 11:20 p.m. deadline and covering a 7 p.m. Wolves game and finishing my story and having something good, hopefully, by 11:15 done, and having that be on people's doorsteps the next morning. There was a lot of pride that I think I took and we all took as a paper, to produce that. And, unfortunately those days for pretty much the entire industry are long gone at this point.
When I was still doing newspapers, which is ancient history now, that was at literally what you've just described as at the top of my list. It was hard, and it was, you could get frantic, and if you have writer's block, it's a problem. But a deadline Wolves column or whatever, deadline Twins column, whatever the case may be, and feeling like you got something. You ended up with something. Maybe it's not Pulitzer Prize worthy, but something that you think is good.
Yep.
On that deadline, the idea we made the deadline, and as you say, that newspaper 5, 6 in the morning on somebody's doorstep will include reaction to what everybody's talking about. There's nothing like that, I think.
Yeah, that was a highlight of, it's been a highlight of working for newspapers, like writing a good feature story and having it be the centerpiece of the sports section, and seeing it displayed and things like that. Like that was something that, for a long time you take a lot of pride in as a writer and a reporter. And, I hopefully maybe it goes the way of like vinyl records and at some point, at some point in the future, there's a rebirth to the newspaper and physical media, but it's not trending that way.
No, I've talked about this for years with Guardsy, that I always, even when I was still writing, there was this sense that, well, the technology is going to get better and better. And what the technology is going to allow us to do is actually even give you better deadlines, right? 2 in the morning, maybe 2:30 in the morning. And for all sorts of complicated reasons, it's obviously gone the opposite way, where, who are you talking about? The Vixen wins the women's professional title. Dan Winnesota is trying to help, saying, here, I'll give you some stuff to the Star Tribune if they're interested. And he was told, well, the game started too late. We'll get it online, obviously, but we can't get it in the publication. That's the part to me that's the most maddening. It seems so counterintuitive to what used to be. We got more editions, and it may not be all 500,000 newspapers we get the latest, but maybe 200,000 of them will have even later information than the previous edition did. That's what I grew up on in Chicago, quite frankly, and now obviously that's just has evaporated.
Yeah, it's a romanticized thing of the past at this point. You get it, you understand it, because different generations and their habits and how they consume things will dictate where this industry is going. So on some level, you do understand it as much as you might not like it. But yeah, that's, it's one of the things that even I'm 39 years old, but I still really enjoyed that and valued that in my career, whether it was in Chicago or in the first, 4 or 5 years of being here.
Star Tribune's Chris Hine, kind enough to join us in studio. Let's get a pause in now. Guardsy, we're due one now, correct? We'll do that. We'll play the Jaden soundbite that you inspired. That sort of became probably, I gotta believe, that was probably the number one quote to come out of the NBA Finals this last year. The Wolves didn't keep winning. It resonated for a long, long time just because of who said it and how unusual it was. We'll play that back if you forgot about it or missed it. Some people want some of your favorite Wolves memories as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about where you're headed as well. Back with Mr. Hine. Don't forget, Dr. Dan's inbox is scheduled for 5:30 this evening. You can email Guardsy with your letters, jg at KFAN.com.
Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barrero on The Fan.
Go out to Jokic, Jamal, all the bad defenders, Tim Hardaway, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, the whole team. Just go at them.
They're all bad defenders.
Yeah, they're all bad defenders.
There it is. Your quote. So, has the story, and maybe I've missed this story, has the story ever been told? Has he ever revisited it in a way to say, how did you get there, Jaden? Was it, how calculated was it? Was it a plan? How do you, now Jaden might be the type who wouldn't even answer the question directly, but have we ever gotten sort of the backstory that led to that moment?
No, I don't think we ever really kind of asked him, why did you feel the need to say that in that particular moment? I think the next time we spoke to him was after, so that was game 2 when he said that, because he had won game 2 in Denver. And then I think they come back to Minnesota and win game 3. And I think that was the next time we chatted with him. And so I think the questions were all about just backing up his words and this and that. I don't think we ever got into why did you say that then exactly? We never really got into.
Well, and I'm not sure he'd answer it anyway. Yeah. He's not the type, I think, who's going to, analyze that much. But that's the part of it that's always been curious to me.
Couldn't the answer be the Wolves, specifically Jaden McDaniels, just hate the Nuggets?
It could be,
and it is.
They hate the Nuggets, don't they?
You definitely got that. You definitely got that feeling covering this team for the last few years that there was a healthy rivalry between the teams and between the players and
Dane Moore and the Denver media.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Forgot about that.
All facets of the Denver Minnesota rivalry.
PA got in on it.
I'm glad, by the way, that the Christmas game isn't Denver though, because I get tired of it. Well, Wolves, let's do the association, word association. It's got to be Denver. I kind of liked it in this case. It's OKC. Now, I think we do have at least one other national game against Denver and another.
We're playing them in rivalry week.
Yep. Exactly. But I liked it in this case for the first time we're playing at Christmas at home. I thought I liked it with somebody else. Now, they might not like it. OKC, is obviously awfully good, but I don't want it to always be Denver.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I feel like it could use a little air, like a college football rivalry that takes a 2-year break or something like that. It's I think it could be good for all involved. I mean, they played 3 playoff series in 4 years. That's a lot. That's familiarity breeding contempt right there. That's
true.
That's that saying.
763 guy. Chris was one of the only local media members willing to see beyond the Wolves' early round playoff advancements and to look more deeply into the long-term salary cap and roster building effects of Conley's transactions, respect for his run in Minnesota, best wishes for the LeBron circus in Philly. It's the perfect jumping off point for part of what I wanted to get into with you. And I think the conventional wisdom in this town, even the conventional media wisdom, is that ultimately the Wolves had no choice but to do what they did when they traded Cat.
Right.
Now, I think you've occasionally, I don't want to say pushed back, but tried to sort of examine all tentacles of that. So what we now take as kind of conventional wisdom, is it true? Or if we look a different way at this, were there other ways you think that at least could have been considered to get the Wolves out of that particular box? What do you have a conclusion on that? Because you've covered it forever, so you come at it having reported all of it.
It's definitely I think the sliding doors moment of this era, especially given that Cat's now an NBA champion and coming off of a Western Conference Finals appearance and everything just trending in that direction. It is the ultimate sliding doors moment of this franchise. I don't know what the alternative would have been. You could say okay, We were just in the Western Conference Finals. Let's give it one more shot here in the second apron and see what happens. But it would have required a massive tax bill. Maybe they don't get as good of a deal coming back for Cat as they do if they wait another year. Because you got to remember, the thing at the time was that Ant's and Jaden's extensions were coming on the books, and that was a lot of money that was coming on the books that year that wasn't on the books the previous year. So that's where all of that came from. And I think, they'll tell you that when they traded for Rudy, which is the first domino to fall in this whole thing, 6 months later is when the CBA gets agreed to and the second apron becomes a thing and a reality in the NBA. So when they make the Rudy trade, they didn't know that the second apron was going to be a thing. So if you're trying to long-term plan out how your team's going to look in 5 years, you don't necessarily know that that's going to be a thing. So I think there could have been, this isn't reported or anything, but if the second apron and all of its restrictions weren't a thing, and it was the old system where you just had to sign a big luxury tax check and be done with it, do they run it back for one more year without all these other roster building restrictions? Maybe, right? Maybe they run it back and hope that they can build off of that success. And to your earlier point about having a guy like Anthony Edwards and always needing to make sure you are doing what you can to build a winner around him, not just now, but for the foreseeable future, I think that was the guiding temp post for why they made that trade eventually, because they will tell you that it was to maintain as much roster flexibility moving forward as you possibly could around Anthony Edwards. So one more tentacle of this is you trade Cat with the idea being that you were also going to re-sign Naz Reid after that season because he was due for a contract as well. So it was a lot of moving parts involved in that move, and it's just very complicated. And I don't think it's as black or white to say like they should have traded Cat, they shouldn't have traded Cat. You had to pick a lane. They picked a lane, and 2 years later, Cat's hoisting the championship trophy, and of course, it's going to look bad in hindsight. But when you're in the moment and you're facing those roster constrictions, it's not as easy as you might think.
Chris Hine is in studio with us. Of course, covers the Timberwolves for the Star Tribune. Headed to Philadelphia to cover the Sixers for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Mark asks whether you believe a team can win an NBA title without effectively a power forward.
The Spurs kind of tried it a little bit this year. I think that will be a thing that they will have to address. I don't think this team as constructed, they're going to need to fill that void at some point during the season. They're obviously going to go into the season trying some different things. It might be a rotating cast of people who start in the starting lineup based on the matchup. But I think ultimately they're going to have to find a more permanent solution at that by the time February gets here and the trade deadline's here. I just think you need as much lineup versatility as possible when you get into the playoffs, and not having a power forward that you can turn to in different matchups or what have you, I think just limits your upside as a team. So I think you need it just for lineup optionality.
You're a beat reporter, but you are allowed, and you do occasionally analyze as well. There's that fine line about how far you go. But I don't remember if you weighed in, even in an analytical way, on the LaMelo addition or not. But whether you did, and now that you're in the exit interview phase, do you buy it? I mean, do you go in saying, because as you know, nationally, it's criticized heavily, Sam Mitchell included, who of course loves the Wolves, but a lot of other people. You say you believe in it. Why?
When you watch them in the playoffs the last 2 years against Oklahoma City, San Antonio, Ant was under a constant barrage of pressure, double teams, gap help, what have you. I think LaMelo Ball, in terms of his creativity, his ball handling. He alleviates almost every concern and problem that Edwards and the Wolves ran into the last 2 years against the Thunder and the Spurs. By having him on the floor, it's going to just make the defense think twice a little more about how they defend Anthony Edwards, how they defend the team as a whole. That his presence on the floor will do that against those matchups. He's a big physical guard, and you need that against the Thunder and the Spurs. If these are the guys you are chasing down for the next couple of years, I think he's about as good of a player archetype that you can get to combat what the Spurs and the Thunder do well, especially because I think if the Wolves really want to activate Ant on the defensive end of the floor, and Finch has spoken about this since the season has ended as well, you need to take the ball out of his hands a little more and put the ball handling responsibilities on somebody else, because it drains him throughout the course of a game. So having LaMelo to do that can help Ant get to that level on the defensive end of the floor in these, throughout the course of the regular season, but also in these higher leverage playoff games and moments as well, that he'll have maybe a little more in the tank for that stuff than he did maybe the last 2 years. So I do think that overall it's a really smart move. Now my concerns around it are his health. I think it's easy to say, okay, let him play 25, 28 minutes a night and get him to April healthy. But one thing I've also learned in watching the NBA is you can't always ramp it up in the playoffs and expect to play at the same level. I think Wemby found that out last playoffs. He was on a minutes restriction the whole year, but when they cranked up his minutes, the production wasn't always the same. So I think that's one thing they're going to have to really examine is, how do you get LaMelo Ball truly ready to play what promises to be physical, demanding playoff series against potentially both the Spurs and the Thunder if you want to win a championship.
The seriousness theme. Been a lot about that. Okay, is LaMelo serious enough about the craft? And it's an interesting history because when he came into the league, in fact, his dad, we played the soundbite. He was on, I think it was on the NBA channel on Sirius. And his dad chuckled about this, and I think in this case had a decent point. Said, my kid comes into the league, and he's smiling and he's laughing, and people are going, "This is great, man. He's got a lot of joy for the game. What's wrong with that? It's wonderful." But then over a period of years, it's gone from joy for the game and upbeatness, to make up a word, to, well, he's not really serious enough. It's almost borderline Harlem Globetrotter stuff. So where are you on that question? Whether, not that he doesn't have the talent to make the plays, but whether as a guy who's been with a team that really has not been relevant, that now he's understanding he's with a relevant team and every night stuff's going to matter. What do you think?
I've covered the NBA for 8 years now, and I've covered it long enough to know that guys' reputations can change very easily and quickly. Anthony Edwards comes into the league as somebody who can't shoot, who doesn't take basketball very seriously. You're not saying that about Anthony Edwards anymore. Andrew Wiggins was somebody who couldn't contribute to winning, goes to Golden State and wins a championship. People had doubts about Karl-Anthony Towns being a winning player. Can you win with Cat? Cat's now an NBA champion. So I think context, situation, all of it matters. Guys maturing in the course of their career as well as they get into their mid to late 20s. This is when guys tend to hit their peaks, not only physically, but they've got the experience. They've got, they know what it takes to win, perhaps at a high level in the NBA. So to me, that stuff isn't as big of a concern and is something that can easily change in the course of somebody's career because, I've seen it with guys I've covered in this profession. And so I think a change of scenery can help with that. And, having to be thrown into the fire of, hey, we're a team that's won 5 playoff series the last 3 years. There's a certain standard here. And, we expect out of everybody here. And in the Wolves, they've followed LaMelo for a long time and, was somebody that they didn't just take an interest in in June when he became available. So they've done their work. They've done their intel. And the best way I could say it is a lot of what the Wolves gathered about LaMelo just defies what the social media perception or public narratives are about him. And they're willing and they're betting that their intel, their scouting, that their gathering of all that information is better than what the social media narrative may be.
Is there, when you look back, when you do the wax nostalgic about your time here covering this team, is there a stretch? Is there a game? Is there even sort of a single moment that you say, I'm going to remember this probably more than anything else?
I think it was the 23-24 season in just, the ultimate good vibes year, how successful the team was. The locker room was, great guys to cover on a daily basis. And the organization too, from the PR staff, the front office, the coaching staff, everybody made the job easy to cover, a good environment to be around every day. And it's not always like that in this profession. Some organizations and, whether it's coaching staffs or front offices, whoever, they might be a little more adversarial towards media. That wasn't the case here. So it made doing the job pleasant and easy, generally speaking. You like to go to the arena, the practice facility every day. And and then that whole season obviously offered me the opportunity to do the AMP book. And so I'll always remember that season. Not just one particular game or series. Obviously the Denver series stands out for multiple reasons, but just that whole season and reminding myself to enjoy it because it's not always going to be like this.
What will you remember about the Tibbs era?
I was here for the tail end of it.
Right. So was it already unraveling?
Yeah. My first year on the beat was literally my first couple weeks taking over the beat was when Jimmy was starting his campaign to get out of town.
Yeah.
So I was here for, less than a full year of the Tibbs era. So yeah, that was my crash course.
There's your christening. There's your, man.
So the whole practice, the whole wanting the trade demands, all that stuff was literally right as I took over the beat in 2018. So it was very stressful and traumatic. So I have a lot of battle scars.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. It prepares you.
It prepared me.
Really?
Absolutely. It prepared you, in a good way. So I definitely learned some lessons during that time.
Very bracing, I'm sure. That's for sure. So in Philly with the Inquirer, 2-person beat.
Yes.
I'm surprised it's not going to be 3, quite frankly, because I got to believe, especially now. By the way, I saw a photo, or maybe it was video, of Embiid. And I got to tell you.
Is he on the Luka diet?
He looks like he weighs 80 pounds.
Yeah.
Now, but I say that in a good way because that's always been the rap, right? You have been unlucky physically, but you don't give your body the best chance to get through it. And it looks to me like he looks serious. And I think he's probably smart enough to know, I got to be serious this time or I'm going to get hammered. But I think you throw that in, what he once was, an MVP, obviously, with the rest of the talent on this team, and then you plop LeBron down in the middle of it, I'm going to guess that your bosses are going to say, you can't give us too much stuff.
I think that's right. I think, so my friend Gina Mizell, who I've known for a number of years, she's been on the beat for a while there. The Philly Inquirer is one of the few newspapers that actually covers their NBA team with multiple people, with 2 people. That's a rarity, especially in 2026. Yep. I think it's maybe us and the Boston Globe that do it that way. So I'm really excited to be working with her. And to your point, like, it's going to be great because I'm even thinking about like what a post-game scenario looks like. Like,
yes.
Okay, LeBron's going to be doing a press conference maybe or something like that, but Joel Embiid's going to be talking in the locker room, and Jaylen Brown's going to be talking in the locker room, and Tyrese Maxey's going to talk, and it's like every time any of these guys say something, it's potentially very newsworthy. So it'll be good to have Gina alongside me, and I think we're going to throw I imagine, especially for the home games, a lot of folks at the arena, columnists and other reporters perhaps, to help out with that, because it is such a huge story from many angles for the paper and for the city of Philadelphia.
651 guy with a callback that I don't have much recollection of. I wonder if you guys do. He asks, or she, was the Shabazz Muhammad game against the 73-9 Warriors the greatest aberration in franchise history?
That was a little before my time.
Okay, I figured.
Yeah, it was like 2013
did he
or 14.
Score 40 or something? I don't even remember it. Do you remember it, Garzi?
I don't. We weren't very locked in at that time.
No,
I
even with Flip.
I'm aware that happened, that they beat that team, but I don't have. That was like 5 years.
There's a name from the past. Oh my God, that's amazing. Have you been around A-Rod and Lori enough to get a feel about where this is going under them? Because there's this sneaking suspicion some have hinted at that they think they are going to be tighter financially, that for all of Glenn's foibles and some of the mistakes he made, that he was always good about the money, and that maybe that's part of what even led to the cat thing, the idea that they sent out sort of signals indicating that, we got to tighten that sort of thing up. Do you have any sense yet on where this might be different with those two guys than Glenn?
Yeah, it's interesting because there was always a drumbeat when they took over as that co-ownership deal with Glenn for a few years, that they didn't have the money, and it's something that we asked them about in the media and that they addressed multiple times. Right. And the thing that I always have said to people is when they take over the team, they will have the chance to show just what their resources and level of commitment is. And this is going now to be the third consecutive year that they are a luxury tax team. And that's going to carry with it repeater taxes and things like that. So it is not a small commitment to do that way. So I think at the end of the day, you just look at what they're doing with the roster, and are they willing to pony up or are they not? And for the last 3 years, that's been the commitment. So that ultimately, I think, is the answer. No, more than what anybody can say or speculate is when the salary ledger is presented at the end of the day, what are they committing? Because I think that's the luxury tax is the number one way in which you prove or don't show your commitment to winning now or in the future.
So Friday's your last official day, but you're not blown out of town yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, I've still got a apartment hunt in Philly, and then come back and move and clean up my apartment here, and then pack up my car and make the long drive from Minneapolis to Philly. Yeah.
Will it be emotional?
Absolutely.
It has to be, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
as invested as you've become?
8.5 years here. I've made a lot of friends. I spent basically my entire 30s here in Minneapolis. This weekend, I'm playing softball with my softball team for the final time. It's our playoffs. So,
nice.
Hopefully we get a little magic going there. But that's going to be sad, having my last softball game with them. Every friends have been reaching out. When can we hang out one more time? I'm trying to throw a little party or something, a going away thing. It's gonna be very bittersweet because this was such a fun 8 years, both personally and professionally, and I'm certainly gonna miss it.
Well, as the trite, the cliche goes, if it didn't hurt, then that would tell you something else, well, you didn't really accomplish anything, or you didn't really invest in that way, and obviously you have. And I have nothing but respect for the work that you've done, and I know you'll do great things in Philadelphia as well. And like I said, that's about as good an opportunity as I think an NBA beat person can have right now. Very really lucky. Is. It's terrific.
I'm very lucky from that aspect to be walking into the situation. I'm very lucky to get to do it 2 hours away from my family, who
even better
I will get to see more. It really is just the perfect timing right now in my life and career, and there was almost no way I could say no to all that.
Well, we'll try to stay in touch, hopefully. Absolutely. Especially now with the LeBron angle, and then when it's Wolves Sixers in the finals, then we'll have you on every other day or something. Who's to say?
I think March 13th is the one is Sixers at Wolves.
Yes, there you
Saturday night.
That's it.
So I've already got that circled on the calendar.
Congratulations on a great run here. Best of luck,
and we'll do
our best to stay in touch.
You guys appreciate all the support over the years.
100%.
Thank you.
Glad to give it. You've more than deserve it. Let's get a pause in. We got Top 5 at 5 coming up a little later. Dr. Dan's inbox as well. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Barrero.
Chris Hine for coming in studio to spend some time with us. Longtime beat writer for the Star Tribune on Minnesota Timberwolves NBA action. Had been the Chicago Tribune previously, covering a lot of different things. And he has announced, within just the last week or two, that he is taking a new job covering the Sixers for the Philadelphia Inquirer, a very historic newspaper. First stringer job I ever had, Guardsy, was with a writer named Skip Myslensky, who was a national college basketball writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer back in the mid-'70s. So his bit was, all right, I'm going to cover the best programs, best stories, so I'm going to, I get some stringers in various college towns. And so I did some stringing work for him where it was just basically, give me some quotes, give me some stuff, what did you see? And then he even came to town a couple times and spent some time with him. And Philadelphia Inquirer is a great newspaper, terrific newspaper.
Heavyweight.
Now, again, like everything, a lot of newspapers are changing. A lot of newspapers are not as good as they once were. They don't have the same resources because they're not making the same money, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm glad Hine is on the board there. A couple people who are texting didn't even know he was leaving because they might have missed the announcement, and it's not like they put the announcement in the paper every day.
Right.
But, yeah, he is moving on Friday, I think he said was his last day. And then he's going to still be in town for a while with some loose ends and then driving eventually to Philly and probably starting, I think, sometime in September there. So
he's such a good dude.
He's a very good dude.
Dude.
It's easy. He's one of those guys very easy to root for, one should say.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Well, and you love that. I mean, it's what you hope for everybody, that you get a good job opportunity. He gets to go closer to his family. He's 2 hours away.
Well, here's the other thing about it.
It's just awesome.
I mentioned this off air to him. So, people in that business are constantly evaluating because every newspaper is facing this new future, some more effectively than others. And so for him to have another opportunity, in other words, it's not a job where you go, well, he just had to settle. No, this is a really good opportunity. It's a solid newspaper, and the LeBron thing's the bonus. Obviously,
it's unbelievable.
He doesn't know that's going to happen when he does it, but that adds another layer. The Sixers will be a national story. Any place LeBron went, here he would. The Wolves would have been a national story, right? On that basis alone. So it's a great opportunity, and then on the personal side, to be a lot closer to family. Because a lot of times you don't get to make that kind of call, even if you'll want to,
right? Unless
you end up settling. And he's not settling at all. So it's a good story all the way around, that's for sure. I'm trying to remember the so-called Shabazz. Remember the Shabazz Muhammad era?
I mean, the whole thing
we didn't even want him.
No.
Remember, that was the draft where we got hoodwinked.
Yes.
Flip got hoodwinked by Danny Ainge, wasn't it?
Yes.
Slipped in front of us to take... Who's the long-haired big man?
Well, here's the best part. The player that he wanted was just okay, too. Kelly Olynyk is who you're thinking about.
He lasted a long time.
Yeah, he was in the league for a while.
I think he's still in the league.
He probably is.
But, yeah, he wasn't a great player.
Right.
He was a decent player, but then Ainge jumps in front of him to take him, and then he's scrambling. That was when we moved down at that point to get two guys, right? It was Shabazz, and who was the big man from Louisville?
Gorgie Dang.
That's it.
Gorgie Jang.
That's exactly right. But he wouldn't want either one of them. And Flip, God bless him, never really had a poker face. So when he met the media that night, you could it was like he'd been hit by a truck. I mean, you could tell that's not what his plan was, I guess is the best way to put it.
And do you remember who was available for all of those draft picks that was so unheralded? He didn't even have a table in the green room. He was in the audience wherever the draft was. Do you remember the player? Giannis.
And I think I've told you this before. Flip had said, I felt like somebody's going to get a really good project player, but I don't want to wait that long.
I know, but when Shabazz Muhammad...
Well, Shabazz Muhammad was a more finished product, and he proved it every single night, didn't he?
I think he proved it right away at the rookie symposium when he got kicked out. Remember that?
I do, that, and then, well, the Ben Holland interview.
That's a top 5 infamous moment.
That's my vindication with Ben Holland, because Ben Holland made him sound like he was going to be an all-pro.
Yes.
And I tried to gently push back, knowing he's the coach. The college coach is not going to rip the guy, but he made him. I mean, and so
and
I think I
fired in part because Shabazz was so disinterested. Remember, there were so many weird things about that whole situation, and that Minnesota beat UCLA, led by Shabazz Muhammad, in the NCAA tournament that March in the first round. Both coaches, Tubby Smith and Ben Howland, got fired that year.
That's correct.
Because we hired Richard Pitino.
That's right.
So we had that baggage that we watched our fired basketball coach and team beat that fired coach, basketball team, and basketball player, and we just knew that
didn't work out very well.
And Flip was in here probably the whole time. That name never came up ever. Yeah, that was
they had no intention of doing that. No intention.
That was
whatsoever.
Unbelievable.
Minnesota hockey guy texts asking what he believes is a dumb question, but it's not a dumb question. Ant only played 1 year college. There was no clear number 1 pick, and we pick Ant. That changed our future. Did everyone think Ant was good back then? The answer is no. The guy I wanted them to pick was LaMelo.
Yeah.
Because I'm a pass first guy. And there were some Ant questions. There was, I'm not going to name them, I'll just say a highly placed college basketball source who watched Ant a lot, coached against Ant some, and thought he was going to be a disaster as a pro. So to that point, it wasn't like, no, you got to take Ant.
Right.
There were people who liked him.
Yep.
But it was not unanimous at all. LaMelo, and I don't know who else I'm forgetting about from that draft that would have been in the
James
debate.
Wiseman the second pick?
Oh, you're right. That was the Wiseman
Golden
year.
State.
Yeah, that didn't work out very well, did it?
No, it didn't.
So
it was also a weird time in that it was the pandemic.
Yes, that's right.
You couldn't really do anything. Like, obviously, the infamous Nobu Malibu dinner with Gerson, Ryan Saunders, and Ant was like the one thing that kind of cemented the whole thing in their mind. But, yeah, all the guys were out of shape. The draft was in, like, October because everything...
Nothing about that was easy, so even if you were a quote-unquote basketball savant.
So, in all honesty, we make fun of Gerson Rosas all the time for obvious reasons, but it's like he made the right call in not normal circumstances. Like, it could have been very easy to mess that up in hindsight. When you think about all the drafts and all the players that have been messed up by the Timberwolves in normal circumstances, that they got the COVID one right when nothing was normal.
Thank you, Gerson Rosas.
Exactly.
No
Exactly
question.
right.
He just left the Knicks, by the way.
He did.
And I don't know if he's landing anyplace else or not.
What if he's starting a team in France to go up against David Kahns?
How good would that be? Former Wolves GMs at each other's throats.
That'd be great.
How good would that be? Chris just titled his Inquirer column
Hindsight?
Hindsight.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's heard that one before, but it is good.
I bet he wrote that in his college paper.
Hindsight.
Yeah, hindsight.
Really good.
That's smooth.
Hindsight. Get it?
I get it. That's
H-I-N-E, not H-I-N-D.
Oh, not hindsight.
No, Hine.
And it's like what he's seen.
Yes.
So it's hindsight. I like it.
What will the top 5 include?
A little bit of Timberwolves schedule, and if you build it, Byron Buxton will return from the injured list.
Bumper.